Sure.
All right. What up? And welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Pnoid News. Man, listen, we got a new video here from Peter Zeihan. This is the New World Disorder. This is, I think, from like last week or something like that. And he's talking about China in this. And, you know, I love how, like, everybody, every time I talk about China, like, oh, man, you know, they're going to take over the world. And I'm just standing here going, like, you're fucking retarded. Like, yo, but I got my boy Raiden here with me. He's going to actually help me break this down. I think I have OBS to a point now where, like, it's actually working the way it's supposed to work. Raiden, what up, man?
Not too much. Enjoying a fine Friday.
I feel you. I'm stuck in fucking Louisville, Kentucky. It's not a positive situation for me, to be perfectly honest with you. But, you know.
Well, let's make some use of your boredom and watch a video, I guess.
I feel you. We're gonna get into this. You know what I mean? Have a discussion, talk about things, break some stuff down. You know what I mean? Like, because Raiden's an intelligent individual. You know, there's a lot of people out here who I could have used for this, and most of them would not have been as smart as he is. Just to be perfectly honest with you. So, yeah,
I'm not going to lie. Most of the time, I'm going to be asking questions. That is probably what's going to end up happening. Like, there's general stuff that a lot of people should know about China. You should know about a flood. You should know about they've got some issues with India. They've got some issues with Australia and Russia coming up. But how much I personally can verify on this subject, very little. So we're just going to go ahead and take a look at what an expert has to say, I guess. And I'm probably going to ask a question because Tom's a little bit more knowledgeable on a lot of economic subjects.
Well, you know, like I read a lot. You know, I mean, I have a lot of fucking spare time sitting on the road not doing shit, so I read and listen constantly, you know. Fucking as Cannabis said, you know, you fucking suckle at the teat of knowledge, constantly learning, you know what I mean? That's how it has to be sometimes. Just pump your head full of fucking nonsense and hope that something pops out on the other side that's, you know, fucking decent. But let's go. All right, let's rock.
How do we take this alliance, greatest in human history, and play it forward? How do we strengthen democracy? How do we improve human rights? 4 straight presidential administrations, we've let bits of American commitment to the old system fall by the wayside as we become more and more insular, geopolitically speaking. It's been a pretty straight line decline, and American troop deployments globally now. We do have a few thousand troops still in the Persian Gulf region. There was a brief mini-surge at the beginning of the year, but most of those troops have already come home as well, which means that the Middle East has to kind of get by on its own druthers. Now, the power that matters the most by far is Saudi Arabia because they are the fuel tank for the world. And under the global order, maintaining Saudi independence, regardless of what some of the less friendly domestic policies that the Saudis had were, maintaining their independence was a core tenet of what allowed the global system to work and what allowed the Americans to wage the Cold War. Because if you couldn't have oil flowing, then you wouldn't have global economic activity, you wouldn't have global trade, and the Americans would have no security. So it was inevitable. But the shale revolution has quadrupled American crude oil production in about a decade, a little bit more. And as of the first of the year, the United States was a net exporter. We're going to face a few hiccups with that coronavirus, but it's going to come back in a relatively short period of time. And what we're seeing is some countries in the region starting to adjust based on this emerging new reality. And the country that has definitely adjusted the most is Saudi Arabia. So China, for most of its history, has been riven by geography or preyed upon by foreigners. It plays very, very loudly in their national myth, and it should. China historically just hasn't been successful. 3,500 years of Chinese history, it's only been large and in charge of all of its territory under a single government that is Chinese denominated, Han Chinese ruled, for about a century of that 35 centuries. We think of China as this age-old entity, but it really isn't. It's a region, it's an ethnicity, but it's not a country in the traditional sense. What changed was the Cold War. When Nixon went to speak with Mao in 1972, they struck a deal. China would be admitted into the American-led family of nations, and all of the countries that had traditionally preyed upon China would be put in the back seat, whether that was Japan or Britain or France. And China, for the first time, could interact with the world economically on its own terms. And that gave us the China boom, the panda boom of the 1990s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. And the Chinese honestly timed this perfectly, because they entered this process really in 1980, and then the Soviet Union ended in 1990. So they had 10 years of being kind of under the Reagan-esque umbrella, and then the Americans stopped asking for anything whatsoever in return, but still provided the global commons. So the China story of the last 30 years is one where the Americans provide everything that the Chinese need and don't ask for anything in return. And that is the China that we know, one that has been able to expand economically in leaps and bounds. But it was always artificial. Chinese import about 3/4, maybe 85% of their total energy needs.
Wait, so any questions yet, my brother?
So, for starters, he's doing a brief summary of China. This is just me paraphrasing as best I can. He's telling us, here's some of the history of China, here's when they entered the market, and here is, well, actually, the deal they made with Nixon. So right at the fall of Russia, change is opportunity. Still, I don't think I have any questions as of yet, and I don't imagine, really, the audience would either yet. Did any come up to you?
No. Like, this is something that I've understand. Like, you know what the U.S. led global order was and shit, and is at the moment.
Well,
like the purposes of it.
I've never really understood it to be necessarily a global order, but that's definitely one way to look at it, because it is in fact, well,
okay.
The United States is supplying the security for trade.
Yeah.
For pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And, they're footing the bill. The other thing that I'd like to point out, when everyone talks about the importance of oil, I know that some of the listeners are probably probably not necessarily your listeners, but I hear a lot more lefties think that oil is outdated or that we don't use oil. That is a myth. Almost all of your power is oil. Like, if you are using electricity, if you are using Tesla, you are probably not using renewable sources. The top user of renewable sources right now in the United States is actually Texas, which is mainly because of its size, but also because they have the most options for it. Everyone else is using oil.
Well, it's also geography, right? It's like, so if you live above Arkansas, right? Like, basically, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you live above like the deep South, like the real southern states, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas. Like, if you live above that line of where those states end, the ability of you to use solar is very difficult because you don't get enough sunlight to do it.
Well, and wind is another complicated beast as well.
Oh yeah, like, I go by wind turbines constantly and they're not moving. Right? It's hit or miss. Like, they're not, like, it's not like, wind isn't like solar where, like, solar, like, the sun's always going to shine. Depending, unless it's nighttime and, like, you'll have cloud cover, but still the sun's shining. You still have light outside. But with the wind, there's a lot of times there's no fucking wind. Like, it is what it is. And you can only go so far up before, the air becomes too thin that you can't have any wind pushing anything. And, most places, like, it's only windy a certain part of the year. It's like, it's not a constant thing. It's not reliable.
Even worse, they're put out in the elements so often. The wind turbines often need to be replaced. And very often they're thrown into landfills, which is a problem into itself.
Yeah,
but let's continue. Let's get back to China for a moment, because yes, this energy, like, whenever they're talking about controlling energy, really is controlling the world market. If you have energy, that is movement. If you have movement, well, you control trade.
Yeah.
It's not an exaggeration to say that if you basically control the world's power, you also control the world's trade.
Yeah, like the energy is what moves everything around, right? The oil's what moves trucks, it moves trains. You know, like I know, like, oh, we got electric trains. They're not electric, right? They're not. It's not actually electric. They have diesel generators.
They're using the cheapest form of energy, and guess what that is?
Well, no, they have diesel generators on them that run electric motors.
Yes,
right. Like they're still running off of oil. You know, I mean, it's still diesel.
They're running on fuel because fuel is simply the cheapest form of energy, and not only that, fuel is the most adaptable form of energy. You can basically activate it when you want it. It doesn't lose power like a battery. You can keep it in a gallon drum if you want to, or you can move it, and it doesn't waste energy until you activate it, and that's the other reason it's used.
Yeah, it's about caloric ability, I mean, kinetic energy, things of this nature. I mean, like oil, that's why we use oil, because oil is probably the best form of energy on this planet as far as shit's concerned, short of nuclear. And even with nuclear energy, the amount of fucking shit you have to go through to build a nuclear fucking plant is ridiculous. It's something like, on average, it's like fucking $10 billion to build a fucking nuclear power plant. So like it's not a cheap fucking process.
And the absolute worst thing about a nuclear power plant is that we are not getting rid of old nuclear power.
Yes, we are.
We should get rid of them more. We are mostly reusing. Well, we are, but there's plenty of others that are still standing, are there not? It's similar to an old oil refinery. I believe back in... this goes back to a bit, but this goes back to Barack Obama's presidency. Exxon wanted to build a brand new oil refinery. But under the Obama administration at the time, they were told you may not build any new oil refinery. Exxon argued that's okay. We're going to close this old oil refinery and build a new one in its place.
Right.
Basically, it'll make everything a lot more efficient, and for what he cared about, a lot more green. He said no. There was literally no reason to do that we are aware of, other than a new one didn't get built, and he got to say, I didn't let a new one get built.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of politics with a lot of bullshit, right? But as far as like the nuclear power plants, like they just closed down 3 Mile Island like last year.
Hadn't heard of that yet.
Yeah,
I know that a lot of them were...
Yeah, last year it got closed. Like Exelon, the company who runs it, decided that it was too fucking expensive to keep it going. It was too old, it was too dilapidated, there was too much upkeep on it, and they decided, we're just gonna close this motherfucker down. And they did.
Well, actually good if they are getting to that, because last I checked, I heard that they were shutting them down soon enough. They were reusing them like we're reusing old airplanes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Let's find out more about China.
Let's keep rocking.
Ended in 1990. So they had 10 years of being kind of under the Reagan-esque umbrella, and then the Americans stopped asking for anything whatsoever in return, but still provided the global commons. So the China story of the last 30 years is one where the Americans provide everything that the Chinese need and don't ask for anything in return. And that is the China that we know, one that has been able to expand economically in leaps and bounds. But it was always artificial. Chinese import about 3/4, maybe 85% of their total energy needs, and they import almost all of the inputs that are necessary to keep their agricultural system running. While the Chinese technically produce most of the food that they consume, they can't grow that food without their import bill. So whether it's oil or fuel or fertilizer, all the inputs for those products, almost all of it's imported. And Chinese farmland, honestly, it's nothing like the Midwest. They have to apply about 5 times the inputs of the global average in order to produce the food that they do. So you disrupt that import system and the whole system falls apart. Well, let's start with the punchline and then talk about what the Chinese are doing. The Chinese system, the Chinese Communist Party, Chairman Xi himself, they are concerned that this really is the end. There's 2 big things driving it. The first is demographic. Now, the Chinese, because of the one-child policy, are not a consumption-led system. They're dependent upon exports. But they're hardly the only country that is in that trap. Germany is in that trap, Japan, Korea, Canada, Italy. Even some of the developing world, such as Brazil and Iran, are honestly very rapidly aging societies. Mm-hmm. And in this decade, we knew that global consumption was going to collapse because of that demographic structure. So the Chinese have always known that they were in a race to see if they could become rich before they became old.
Right.
That was always a race they were probably going to lose, but what coronavirus has done is kicked it into high speed. So instead of having 2 to 10 years to recover their system, they really only have this year, and that's not enough time.
Let's give it a pause.
The second problem is American.
Right.
So you may...
What up?
That is something I would like to chime in on a little bit, because something he said, there is one piece of misinformation that is common that I would like to get out of the way. China did not, on purpose, release coronavirus.
Oh, yeah.
It does not benefit them.
No.
I know this is going to seem obvious to you, Tom, but it is worth saying. This is not something they released on purpose. This is basically putting the letters to their doom out.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense for you to, like, piss off the entire rest of the fucking world and eliminate your consumption base that buys your fucking products.
And reduce trade, and not only that, their ability to get oil and other things has been hindered.
Yeah.
Like, while the United States is still producing and all, our production has indeed gone down. Granted, a lot of usage has also gone down as well, but why would you put a dampener in that? Why, if they were growing so well, why would they stop it? It doesn't make sense that China would want to do that. And also, just to be clear, it doesn't make sense that the United States would want to do that either.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been better to just not do anything for all parties involved.
Well, the only countries that this benefits is Europe. When it really comes down to it.
Oh, yes.
You know, like...
I agree.
Like, the only countries that the Corona Chan benefits is Europe, because Europe needed an opportunity to get some money pumped into their fucking system, and the United States literally just printed off $6 trillion into the global fucking markets.
Change always means opportunity, and for them, that is an opportunity in particular.
Yeah.
So we can continue, but I wanted to point that out in particular because he's saying that, and I agree with him, like 100%, when he says, I'm not even an expert on this subject. I suppose I'm a keen observer of the obvious. And the obvious is this. The coronavirus, the beer virus, Corona-chan, COVID-19, call it what you want, is spelling doom for China.
Well, it spells, yeah. This isn't really good for anybody except Europe. It's the only countries that this is okay for. Because Europe...
And even they would probably prefer just to not. Well, if I'm being honest.
Well, Europe already had a population, let's be honest here, who were highly welfare fucking driven. Right? So this is normal for them not to work. Like, they've already been on this shit. So, like, this, you know what I mean, this is just more of the same for them, except for the fact that somebody else pays for it.
What of the riots in England, in perhaps Italy as well? I can confirm there's some of that going on.
Well, yeah. But, like, they always riot. That's normal for them.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? I mean, like, think about France. Like, fucking, like, France riots on, like, a given Tuesday for, like... You know what I mean? Because they're fucking low on cheese or some shit, or baguettes or whatever the fuck they eat.
There's a saying that the Greeks used to say, that there's a Greek saying, there is trouble in the gypsy village, which basically meant, so what? There was always trouble in the gypsy village. Like, you know, that's basically the saying, and France has become that location. There's trouble in the gypsy village, and then everyone's like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Italy's the same way. You know what I mean? Britain's the same fucking way. It's a constant state of fucking protest over there. You know what I mean? Because, like, their people are well rested and don't have fucking jobs. You know, like they're fucking old welfare recipients living in fucking government housing. So, you know, it is what it is.
Fair enough. Let's continue the video for now. I didn't mean to interrupt quite that
no, you're good. Like, dude, we got
it's relevant.
Yeah, we have to cut this up, you know what I mean, and have a conversation about shit, because like, I don't own this video.
I'm going to be very real. Some of the stuff I'm saying is I need to get some stuff out of the way that I hear a lot.
Yeah, I feel you. I
I had somebody to get that out of the way.
Yo, I had somebody today come into my live stream and tell me that fucking like the Corona Chan and them not having food at restaurants is all a giant psyop ran by the fucking government. And I'm like, are you fucking retarded? Like, why the fuck would the government be running a psyop by not having food at Subway?
Listen, I can tell you why a lot of people come up with this misinformation. And there is a root cause for it. And there's not much we can do about the root cause. I know you're thinking I'm about to say stupidity, but it's actually, they do not trust near all sources of information. Like, for example, someone will believe in a flat Earth only under the assumption that the government and everyone is lying to them all the time.
Okay, well let me put this way, right? Because I think I'll make it way easier for, you know, I mean, me and you to be able to understand it to my audience as a whole. This is how I explained it on my live stream. I said, look, when I was going to court and I was on bail for 2 years, right? And I'm facing 12 years. Everybody had the same question for me. Every single person asked the same exact thing. They said, what are they thinking, Tom? What are they thinking? And eventually I came down to the conclusion that I go, they're not thinking. They're not thinking about me at all. Like, I'm a number. Like, I'm a box that an Amazon employee shipped last Tuesday at fucking 1:23 in the afternoon. Right? They don't fucking think. Like, they don't care. You're not that important. Like, they don't give a shit.
No. And they don't have time to manage everyone either. They don't.
Yeah, they don't have the ability to do any of the shit that you're thinking that they're doing. Like, they're not that competent.
It's similar to people who believe that, you know, when you're playing your online game, they believe that the game itself is watching. They don't have the time, the money, or the management to do that. The government is much the same way. While what is true is they have tools to be able to look if they wanted to a lot of times. Like, Tom, if you had a super weapon that we had to find out as much about you as possible, they would get all the information they needed. No questions asked. They would get it, and they would get it quickly. But when you're talking about managing millions, if not billions of people, that is absolutely out of the question. It's simply too many.
Yeah, they look for keywords and things of this nature. You know what I mean? Like, they fucking listen for certain things and then they click in and out. Or if you're like me, and I'm a target, like, I get it. You know what I mean? I'm a YouTuber, you know what I'm saying? I'm not fucking super popular, but, you know, like, I'm popular enough that I have the reach that I can go on shows of guys who have 200,000 subs or fucking 500,000 subs, and they have a lot of reach. You know what I mean? So, like, and I say crazy shit on a regular basis. So I know, like, every once in a while, like, I'm on the phone and I'm going down the fucking road and shit, and you hear the clicks and the pops and the motherfucker fucking real quick and shit. And I know what it is. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like, sometimes when I'm talking about shit and I'm talking about the government on the phone, I know they click in every once in a while. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? But, like, they're not specifically listening to me. They're listening for fucking, you know what I mean, individuals who want to blow shit up, you know, because that's, you know, fucking what the government does. It's there to maintain itself.
I will say this, though, and this will lead into China, this conversation. China is the closest to getting to that point. To Big Brother is watching you. They are the ones who... The Great Firewall of China, as it's called, and for those of you who are viewing who don't know what that is, would understand if you don't. Basically, information is not to get in and out of China. They do not want, like, we do not have open communication with the Chinese. When we are on the internet, you're not seeing what they're seeing, for example. They have their own. And basically, this is filtered. I'm paraphrasing, and this isn't exactly how it works, but you can think of it as you're phased out. They're going to see their information, you're going to see yours, and it's more difficult to communicate. Usually when they communicate, I think they use apps. I think one of them was like Huawei or something. I'm not sure about that. I got that right. But there are apps.
Well, Huawei's the company that fucking makes a lot of like the electronics for their fucking country and their people.
There was an app that they made, and it was something akin to WhatsApp. Discord,
yeah. I know what you're talking about,
Facebook,
but I fucking forget the name of it.
Your wallet all at the same time. There was no app like it. It was going to come over here to the States, but it was struck down because basically it was, a threat to information, as far as like it was a breach of security. It gathered too much information and recorded it. It would keep track of buying habits and things like that. Now, while a human being can't keep track of you, programs certainly can, and they can put you on a list or things like that. And China, in fact, does do that. From what I understand, China is worse than what I was originally imagining. China there was a foreigner where he went to a hotel. He had to report every hotel he went to, which that's not all that unusual, but he noticed something else. If you were black, you had to report more often.
Yeah.
It was a different form.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't black. He just noticed that, and I went, that is interesting. Still, let's take a look at China some more. I didn't mean to rabbit trail off too much.
It's cool. We're gonna we'll keep banging.
And in this decade, we knew that global consumption was going to collapse because of that demographic structure. So the Chinese have always known that they were in a race to see if they could become rich before they became old.
Right.
That was always a race they were probably going to lose, but what coronavirus has done is kicked it into high speed. So instead of having 2 to 10 years to recover their system, they really only have this year, and that's not enough time. The second problem is American.
Right.
So you may remember back in January, if you can remember.
What up?
Beg your pardon?
I don't know, it sounded like you got something to say.
Not this time, no.
Oh, okay. All right. Keep going then.
Time. The second problem is American.
Right.
So you may remember back in January, if you can remember back that far in the environment we're in, that the Trump administration and the Chinese had agreed to a phase 1 trade deal in order to forestall or at least delay an ongoing deepening of the trade war. Well, the Chinese promised to make a lot of changes that they had no intention of making, because if they had made those changes to things like rule of law and intellectual property control or subsidization, it would have meant that their economy would have fallen into a depression. And in that environment, the Chinese political system probably could not have survived.
Okay.
So we always knew that this truce was only going to last a few weeks. Well, coronavirus actually made it last a few months because everybody was paying attention to other things.
Right.
Well, now the Trump administration is starting to pay attention to foreign affairs again. They're realizing that the Chinese lied about everything that they said they were going to do. And so the trade war is about to boil back up to full steam in an election year where both sides seem committed to competing on who can be more anti-Chinese. So whether it's the long-term structural problem or the short-term economic crisis, the Chinese know that the jig is up. And their plan, such as it is to institute a global propaganda campaign designed to anger the whole world in the hopes of triggering so much nationalist backlash within China that they aren't as concerned. So the Chinese citizenry is not as concerned with things like economic growth and security. So basically, Xi is trying to piss off the world in order to piss off the Chinese, in order to develop tools to contain what is about to be a political upwelling that he fears will wash his entire country away. What's going on is the Chinese have so little confidence in their own system that they look for places to park cash outside of China. And there's only so much real estate that you can buy up, because it has to be for sale first, before you have to start looking into the bond market. And so the Chinese know that the jig is up. And And the largest bond market by far in the world is U.S. government debt. So you even have Chinese government entities that are dumping hundreds of billions of dollars into U.S. government debt, knowing that they'll get a zero rate of return because they think that's a better rate of return and more security than they would get if they invested in their own system. In addition, it's not like the Chinese can punish the U.S. by dumping the debt on the market. You have to have a buyer. So if they were to dump it all, and all of a sudden the price of U.S. debt goes down to, say, 30 cents on the dollar, the Federal Reserve, which controls the American money supply, would simply expand that money supply by enough to absorb all of the debt at a discount. So every once in a while, you'll have some Chinese academic blowhard who says that, yeah, we have a nuclear option here. And you'll get this little cute, kind of snarky reply from one of the Federal Reserve branches. The St. Louis Fed is usually the one to do it, which basically says, oh, we would love it if you could do that. If we could retire the entire U.S. national debt for 30 cents on the dollar in a day, brilliant, bring it on. And then China gets very quiet about it for a couple months. Well, I'm not sure the demographic argument for war is a good one because, if you want to get rid of 100 million men, the only way to do that is with a nuclear conflict, and I don't think the Chinese are interested in that. But the idea of saber rattling in order to achieve strategic goals, of course. The problem.
Have you ever heard somebody stand here and actually make that? They go, fucking China owns a whole bunch of the United States.
I hear that all the time. That's new. That's nothing new to hear.
Yo, but people are fucking dumb.
Well, to be fair, I have a very, very smart person who would argue that it does matter because he argues that they have a system set up where they can get their money back immediately using a third party, which, as it turns out, yes, they can, if they so desired. But it would not be in a way that would benefit them.
Yeah. And not only that,
if they took the nuclear option.
Here's the thing, right? Like, I've heard a lot of people make arguments about, oh, China, they're buying up farmland and real estate and property in the United States and all this dumb shit. And then you go, but they can't take the land with them.
Yes, and not only this land that they're buying is typically in California, if I recall correctly.
Well, Texas, Idaho, there's a bunch. It doesn't matter where they buy the land. It just doesn't fucking matter.
It does in this case, and the reason I'm going to say why is because a lot of it has been in California.
Okay. And
California is going through a few changes, I'm sure you've noticed.
Yeah, they're becoming communist.
California land value is about to take a shift as well. You'll notice a lot of them are trying to sell. Now, is this permanent damage? Yes. I would argue not.
I would argue, okay.
Over time,
define
it will
permanent in time-wise, right? Is this a long-term problem? Yes.
Is this a 20-year problem?
Yes.
We'll put it that way.
Yes, for sure.
Say yes. Now, on the short-term issue, we have so much land. If you have a bunch of Californians leaving California, which is precisely what's going on, ask Texas.
Yeah.
California, and I don't mean to, but California made it a rule where basically they have been anti-contractor. They have been very much targeting contractors. And what I mean by this is, let's say you were a journalist and you were a contractor. There's a lot of journalists that are contractors. Let's say you want someone to write a commercial for you, you'd get one of them. Or you want someone to write a piece for you in a magazine, you'd get one of them. California was doing a push for legislation where they would essentially have to hire them on full time so they would get benefits, and they argued this would be better for the contractors, when in actuality they just started hiring outside the state because they need contractors, not full-time employees. I only need 3 jobs a year, for example. There's tons of companies that happens. They started doing that to truck drivers. There's plenty of contractors that were having an issue with that. And there's probably someone who knows more on that detail, or more details on that than I do. But one likely getting refugees in other states. I've said hello to them. It's happened. But I digress. I believe the land value, because of this, will experience a shift as well. There's been an awful lot of people selling in the United States California land, especially of late. What happens when a bunch of people sell at once is usually the value diminishes.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen though, right? And the reason why that doesn't happen is because of the Fed, right? Like, did you know right now the Fed owns 30% of all United States mortgages?
Sounds right. I didn't know it was that high, but sounds right.
Yeah, it's like 30%. It's probably a little higher right now, to be perfectly honest with you. Right. Like as of in 2011 or 2012, they owned like 34% or 36%, something like that. And they were fucking, you know, I mean, they're at around 30% right now, 31% at the moment. So like what the Fed does is the Fed just houses the mortgages, right? And just keeps them there. Like there's like, I found this article one time, this real estate article that said that there was something like 9 million people across the country who were basically living in the homes that had got foreclosed on by the bank that the Fed bought the note on, and they were just living there rent free. Not squatting, just living there. Because they never got evicted because the Fed didn't want to sell the house because it would have dropped the fucking property value around the area.
Fascinating. I have got to get myself into that business.
Right? So like, yo, real estate's never going to go down. And I'm going to tell you why, because these MBS products, like the mortgage-backed security products that we have, is the basis for most of the stock market. It's the building block, basic brick that the whole thing's built off of, that holds up the bonds and the pensions and everything like that. And if they collapse, the entirety of the economy collapses.
Well, and we're actually in a number of housing bubbles as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it's unsustainable long term.
Well, that's for sure. And not only that, with our demographics going down, it's gonna eventually collapse. Like, it is what it is. Like, unless they let inflation run fucking rampant in the job market with pay, right? Because the payroll has to go up in order for any of this to make any sense, right? Because if payroll doesn't go up, then individuals aren't going to be able to continue to afford to have higher valued houses.
Is this one of the reasons why there's a government push to raise minimum wage and things of that nature?
Well, the government push to raise minimum wage is because, you know, poor people vote. But it's not going to help.
I was wondering if there was more to it than just I'm an idiot who doesn't know how economics works.
Yeah, poor people vote.
I guess that's dumb. It. Okay.
Yeah, poor people are dumb and they vote. You know, I mean, that's just the basic premise of that bullshit right there, right? But the reality is that, you know, they've raised real estate values. Like, the average new home cost right now is $396,000. Like,
that part didn't surprise me.
Yeah, I feel you. It doesn't surprise me either. But on the same point, that's ridiculous. Like, how can you afford that when the average take-home pay is $38,000?
Yeah, and further, if like you know, when for a long time I thought I was doing well. Like when I was making $60,000 a year, I thought I was doing very, very well, and then I, you know, found out that no, not so much, because when I started getting California clients and I started hearing how much they were making, I admit I was a little bit jealous until I saw their taxes, because I worked healthcare, you see. And what we would do is whenever we look into an insurance claim, their assets are a factor. Like, will the government assist them or things like that? And we see how much does the government take. They take a lot. You know, they took a lot more than I thought, and just the cost of living there was significantly higher than I imagined. But I digress. Let's take a look back at, because the United States will have its due. We will have our problems soon enough. Let's take a look at China, who seems to be already in the middle of their problems.
Yeah, they're about already there. Let's keep rocking.
Chinese academic, blowhard, who says that, yeah, we have a nuclear option here. And you'll get this little cute, kind of snarky reply from one of the Federal Reserve branches. The St. Louis Fed is usually the one to do it, which basically says, oh, we would love it if you could do that. If we could retire the entire U.S. national debt for 30 cents on the dollar in a day, brilliant, bring it on. And then China gets very quiet about it for a couple months. Well, I'm not sure the demographic argument for war is a good one because, you know, if you want to get rid of 100 million men, the only way to do that is with a nuclear conflict, and I don't think the Chinese are interested in that. But the idea of saber rattling in order to achieve strategic goals, of course. The problem that the Chinese have is that there really aren't any good options. I mean, they could go west into Kazakhstan, but, you know, what does the winner get? They could go southwest into India, but the Himalayas are in the way. They could go south into Vietnam, but the last time they did that in 1979, they were treated by the Vietnamese to the same level of hospitality that America was during our war with Vietnam, and so they're not in a hurry to do that again. They could go north into Russia, but the Russians have said publicly that, you know, we won't even consider meeting you tank for tank on an open battlefield. We'll just nuke you. So that really just leaves going into the ocean. And the Japanese Navy is more powerful and longer range. So the Japanese could simply interrupt Chinese supply lines 3,000 miles away and destroy the Chinese system in a couple of weeks without firing a shot. That just leaves Taiwan. And Taiwan is a potential target of the Chinese military. And if the Chinese do decide to try to use war to hold the line, that is really the only place they can even remotely go. I don't want to suggest that that would be an easy war for the Chinese. The Taiwanese have allies who would help them, the Japanese first and foremost. But most importantly, if Taiwan really did feel that it was under pressure, the Taiwanese have a nuclear program. And if they had enough advance notice, I have no doubt that they could develop a series of crude nuclear weapons in a relatively short period of time. Well, the economic system, the economic model they follow of debt-driven economic activity, it's basically Enron on steroids. It was going to run out of steam sometime in the 2020s. And it's only with a significant bout of creativity that it's lasted as long as it has. And the China that we have today is much more powerful. It could be contained in that matter, but again, that would require a degree of leadership and decision-making that we haven't seen out of this administration or its predecessors. So the far more likely outcome is that the China that we're dealing with today is strategically boxed in, it's economically vulnerable, and it's politically brittle. So some degree of Chinese implosion is almost kind of hardwired into the picture now. The question is whether it happens this year or next year. For the Americans, that means the question is going to be, do we want to deal with the aftermath? One of the big problems that we have in American strategic policy right now under Trump, under Obama, is that the United States just doesn't have any skin in the game. It has no tools to bring to bear, and it especially has not convinced the American population that it should be invested in the outcome. So we're probably going to have a power vacuum in East Asia when the Chinese system breaks down, and that will leave it to other countries to chart the future of that part of the world. Chinese history is rich with examples of how it can all break down. And the most likely outcome, although I don't even really want to put my thumb on the scale on this one, is that the southern cities from Shanghai south start functioning as independent city-states. Shanghai to Chengdu, the Sichuan Basin in the interior, kind of becomes its own independent entity. And then the north kind of drops into a neo-Maoist tyranny that is short of food, short of energy, short of finance, and it's just kind of becomes a little bit of hell on earth. That version has happened before, and I think that is the most likely outcome. To that we'll be facing. In that sort of environment, Taiwan and Japan probably de facto become partners and try to manage what happens on the mainland, and the United States honestly probably just butts out, aside from perhaps having some corporate relationships with those southern city-states. So the real challenge for Americans moving forward in this scenario is what happens 10 years from now, 20 years from now, as Japan has kind of reestablished itself as the dominant power of the region. Now, Japan is not itching for a fight with America by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of geopolitics is about outcomes, not intentions. Well, there's a few things to keep in mind. Number one, China is not the only country that's a manufacturing power, and there are plenty of countries with more stable economic, financial, and political systems than the Chinese. I am a big fan of Southeast Asia in general, and on the backside of the coronavirus crisis, I expect several of those countries to actually do fairly well. Second, and far more importantly, is Mexico. Mexico has a positive demography. It's already integrated into our supply chains. There are a lot of cultural links between the two countries. And say what you will about López Obrador in Mexico City and Donald Trump in Washington, their relationship has fostered American bilateral relations with Mexico to the most positive place they have been in the history of both republics. We have never enjoyed this positive of a relationship with our southern neighbor, and that's only going to grow moving forward. American manufacturing has been decamping for other countries for 30 years, yet the value of American manufacturing in total has not declined. Basically, whenever there's a new process or new technology or new product, the Americans make it first, and they make it better. And then we figure out a way to make it cheaper, and then it moves. And so the manufacturing base that the Americans have now is far more technologically and financially intensive than the sort of stuff that exists in, say, Mexico or China. So when this stuff comes back, whatever the rationale, we need to find a new way to operate it, because you're not going to be paying people $100 an hour to make underwear. Which brings us to the second piece, technology. There are a lot of industries that left the United States years, if not decades ago, that technology now does exist that allows the American worker to be competitive, but it looks different. So, for example, let's say you grow cotton in Uzbekistan and it is shipped to Pakistan to be woven by hand into yarn, and that's then shipped to India where it's woven by hand and loom into cloth, and then it's shipped to Bangladesh where it is sewn by hand into clothes. Well, we now have technology that can do that entire process automated with a staff of 2 per acre of industrial plant. So textiles is going to come back to the United States, especially under COVID, but it's going to look very different from what textiles were when it left back in the 1980s. Well, one of the dark sides of COVID is that we have 30 million unemployed in the country right now. 10% of the population, 15% of the population have already lost their jobs, so they're available. Something that is happening right now throughout the entire industrial space is small mom-and-pop manufacturers with an emphasis on things like machine shops are absorbing capital and tech and even labor and starting to retool the entire industrial base. So a lot of this is coming back. It is looking different, but we are already taking more than just the first steps in making it a reality. But we're not going to have those big assembly lines, or at least not in most industries. There's a lot of that uses automation, and automation is expensive, and every time you have a tweak to the product, you have to overhaul the automation. That only makes sense if you're dealing with global economies of scale. And in a COVID world or a post-order world, we're really just concerned about serving our own market. So we don't need those massive production runs. What we need are smaller, nimbler manufacturers that can adopt new technologies very quickly. And we're getting a great case study right now on how COVID is forcing that to happen. The Americans were getting a little bit more aggressive when it came to things like espionage and when it comes to things like intellectual property theft. And so we actually had several people who were arrested just today that were associated with the 1,000 Talents program, which was basically a government-sponsored program for joint developing technologies and then absconding with them back home before they were finished so that the Chinese could have corporate advantage. I expect that to accelerate, and based on which university you're talking about, that's a significant portion of the income. What the American university model has been doing for years is jacking up tuition fees, knowing that they're only going to charge those fees in full to foreigners, most notably to Han Chinese. That income stream is now gone. And with the manufacturing system changing, And with the demographic situation and changing, the traditional 4-year university program is probably endangered. 2-year programs, technical skills, to getting a 6-week welding degree, that sort of educational system is likely to see an explosion in activity. But again, we were moving this direction anywhere. I'm sure you're familiar with things like Minerva or the Khan Academy. You know, those programs allow you to get a education that's like 20% as good as Harvard, but for free.
Right.
When that is the case, it's really hard for traditional school to compete. Well, the technology was always going to force a change to the way we educate. That was inevitable. And with private education...
Yo, let me say this. I've been saying this for years, right, that this was coming. Like, I legit, like, I've been saying I have no idea why it is that we continue to have fucking colleges and schools in general. Like, when we can literally do it for free online. I don't fucking understand why we still fucking education and go through all this bullshit.
I wouldn't mind a apprenticeship program, a guild system, there's a dozen things you could replace it with.
Well, I had a dude today, right, in my comments message, and he put a comment in my thing. He said he just got his CDL and he is nervous about using it, right, because he's scared to drive the truck. And I'm standing here in my head going, hang on a second, son, right? Like, yeah. Why did you go to school to get a CDL? Like, why? Every trucking company who does fucking OTR trains people and will get you your CDL. And they'll do it in a natural manner in which you're in the truck with a guy who can teach you what you're doing. Right? And you just go from one day not having your CDL and having a permit to having your CDL just after taking a test. And you just step right past that, and it's just part of it. Why did you go to school? Why did you pay fucking $6,000 to go get your CDL at a community college? When you could have done it in 2 weeks at a fucking school and been done and not had to do it, not had to go through that shit.
Right.
Like, why?
They should. They honestly, there's a ton of situations where I just had a conversation with someone who he got a degree. He's working in logistics. He's making okay money. You know, he's doing all right. But he has a lot of college debt, and there's dozens of stories. Anybody can name a story like this. They went to college, they got something, and you're like, that doesn't have much to do with your degree.
Yeah.
You know, like, their job has nothing to do with it. I instead went to trade schools and, you know, just office administration or learning something as trade skill instead, or heck, just do junior colleges.
Well, in a previous life, I was a fucking steel worker, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, many years ago, I was a steel worker, and at the steel mill on a regular basis, you worked with dudes who were teachers and like fucking just all types of shit. And you just stand here and you go like, why the fuck are you at the mill working right now? And you realize like, oh, you can make more money in manufacturing and working in the union than you can in the goddamn fucking school. And you can make more money, you know what I mean, with your degree here and not even use your degree or need it. And I'm sitting here working with a fucking GED making more money than you are. Like, it's fucking, education is stupid. Like, colleges are dumb. I think like grade school and elementary need to go by the wayside as well, me personally. Like, we can get rid of all these property taxes and not spend $1 trillion a year on education by just doing it all the fuck online. And, you know what I mean, like fucking figuring out how to make kids fucking learn at home and, you know, have communities and community activities where they can interact with other kids rather than having this social mentality of, oh man, you need this social interaction at school. Like, fucking, like, have them play fucking baseball or kickball in the neighborhood. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, there's a lot of situations where I've noticed that homeschool is on the rise. Like, that's no ifs, ands, or buts. It is on the rise, and the reason that is one of the reasons that happened is there were waivers that that were sent home with the students. Please don't watch what we're teaching your kids. Please don't listen in. And I understandably had to question, what are you teaching them?
Like everybody would. Like everybody fucking would. Like at any time if somebody said, hey, we're going to teach your kids some shit, but we don't want you to know what it is.
We want you to know what that is. And so, of course, you're going, I beg your pardon? You know, you are going to step in immediately and go, no, I think we could do a better job. And to be perfectly honest, we have a bunch of stuff that's coming up that seems unavoidable, that seems bad, but we have some stuff coming up that's unavoidable, that seems good. We do not need the school system as it is.
No.
We absolutely don't. And honestly, everyone has pointed out it's a waste. And you know what? I'm actually still going to college myself. I'm not spending a fortune doing it, but mainly I'm doing it on my free time whenever, I want to do it, and I have to do the assignments accordingly, and they just leave stuff for me to do. Essentially, it's very hands-off. I don't need to go into a classroom, and it's very cheap.
Yeah,
that makes a lot more sense than, say, I have to go into the building and, spend thousands upon thousands of dollars when you could do the same thing for $600.
Well, I get educated for free every day.
Well, and I can imagine that some amount of payment is going to be needed because I cannot teach myself any form of advanced chemistry or physics.
You can too.
Actually teach. I'm sure you could, but there's a point where I'm like, money well spent, But still, they have their, and also I do need to pass their curriculum in order to get the career path in this case.
Well, see, this is the problem, right? When it comes down to it. And this is something that I've been thinking about, and I'm sitting here and I go, all right, well, if I was a tech company, how would I sit here and promote myself as a positive company? And one of the things that I would do personally, if it was my company and I was doing it, is I would have a fucking Rhodes Scholar type of deal, right? Where if I'd go, all right, well, if you pass this fucking test, we'll put you into our internship program, and you can, come work at Google as an engineer, and we'll put you up, in your own place and the whole nine, whatever the case might be, and give you a career and a fucking education that's unmatched in any industry, and you'll be completely covered. And I go, and I'm sitting here in my head, I'm like, yo, that would solve almost all of their problems. They would end up with the best workforce that they could possibly imagine. Everybody who fucking worked for them would want to work for them, right? And all they would have to do is educate motherfuckers, and you don't have to deal with motherfuckers coming out of college being SJWs. Because I know they don't like it. I know for sure there's no manager at Google who goes, yeah, man, you know what I want? I want a blue-haired college motherfucker to deal with who don't want to do any fucking work.
No one says that. Yeah, no one says that.
No one.
So, I've always wondered this. So here's something I wondered. And now what you've suggested might have some cost to it. But might I even suggest something a little even less beneficial, which a little less ambitious? This is much simpler. Think of it that way. Instead of paying the college, why don't you spend the same amount of money paying that company to train you?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Google itself will train you.
No, I'm suggesting this. You're suggesting, you're like, hey, Google pays for it. I'm like, no, why don't you just take the money that you would have spent on a university and spend it on the company, and the company just agrees to train you?
Yeah, because that doesn't make any fucking sense.
I'm sorry, the university seems like an unnecessary middleman.
Oh yeah, I feel you, right? The university is completely worthless. There's only maybe 3 things you need a university for, right? And that's for...
I would keep the ancient ones, the ones that do particularly well. Let's say,
Harvard,
not necessarily particular. Yeah, anything that's Yale, a big name, Princeton. MIT, Harvard, things like that. Yeah,
I'm saying, it's what I'm saying. You need them for law, right? Doctors, right? That's probably a good course to keep there. Law, doctors, and civil engineers.
We certainly don't need diploma mills. We don't need that.
No, but like law, and like people, like lawyers, right? Because you need lawyers in the fucking society. Doctors, you're gonna need fucking doctors, and civil engineers to like build bridges and buildings and shit.
Well, and one thing that I think that would be really cool is, like, I'm positive there are some students who want to do things like be a chef, and yet they go to a school for that. And I've always
that is the worst. Yo, like nobody has ever made any money as a chef if he went to college to be a chef.
Right. So I want to go. Why don't you just pay the company to train you?
Even better. Like, here's what I'm saying, right? Legit. Like, because the company isn't going to stand here and have. It's a positive thing for the company if you're able to train them from the ground up in your way of doing things, right? Number one. Yep. Number two, this is a future investment in your own company, right? These are individuals who, like, you've given them a test to show that they have the skills, ability, and wherewithal to do this. You've went through the process of selecting the individuals who you want to go through this program. And you're having the ability to stand here and build future growth at your company. So this is all positive for you. And on top of that, the fucking kids that you're bringing in, the 18, 19-year-old kids that you're bringing in to do all this shit, these are the cream of the fucking crop. You should be paying for them. Comes down to it.
Well, and a lot of companies already do.
There's there's almost none. The apprenticeship programs are fucking gone. Like, they fucking disappeared years ago.
You misunderstand. So AT&T, I think, spends $6,000 a head training you for like 2 weeks, and that's all the new hires.
Okay.
And so they're dumping money into new hires to train you to do something simply. So companies already take a pretty decent chunk of the bill already.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you already have a degree, right, in engineering or computer science or whatever the case might be, you can go work for anybody. Whereas, like, this kid is now trapped at fucking Google until he gets the experience 5-6 years down the road of actually being in the field of doing what he's doing and being good. So you're guaranteed to get a good 4 or 5 years worth of solid work out of this motherfucker who's going to be productive for your company.
Or at least it's not going to be at a loss. Because, for example, even if you aren't paying for him, because honestly, I consider that a bit ambitious, because a company would go, if you remove the risk from the company and you say, well, how about instead of paying the school, I pay you a significant amount less, the company would go, wait, you would pay for your own training? Because usually the company pays for your training. And that's why they don't hire as quickly as they'd like to.
Yo, but that's dumb, though.
But the student paying, that's not dumb at all. It's actually it would incentivize a company to get on with it.
Well, no, I mean, like you could give out tax breaks for this, but at no point would I you shouldn't have the kid because basically it would end up being slavery. It would be it would be like back in the day when they trapped you in like fucking paying for shit at the company store when you plantation, you know what I mean, that you were working at.
I suppose, but the argument I'm making is, why would you even have a middleman when you could pay for your training directly from the company you want to work for?
Well, I want to eliminate the fucking college too, completely, right? I want the fucking college gone.
The issue with what you're suggesting is, if the company fits the bill the entire time, they'll be hesitant to do it. If the students are willing to put in something, now there's probably 2 ways you could do it. You could say either you score high enough, you pay into it. I don't know what the system would be. Scoring high enough, there aren't enough smart kids.
Oh, there's plenty of smart kids, but the problem is legit is that these smart kids aren't going to college, right? Like, so schools aren't made for smart kids. Right,
typically not. No.
Like most geniuses wash out of fucking schools.
Well, so the things that they want in school are obedience, as in like conformity is one thing that they really, really encourage, and if you can't do that, they want you gone real quick. Another one that's they don't like it. You cannot make your smartest student smarter a lot of times, but what you can do is you can make him dumber. Like, I cannot bring... I need everyone to have the same grade in this classroom, so what do? They have to push smart people down to average, is what they basically...
The problem you run into when it really comes down to it is that what you're doing is that you're sitting here taking the smart kids, right, and you're forcing them to interact with dumb ones, right? And so that smart kid's going to be highly adaptable, and he's going to start acting like a dumb kid, right? You know, and like fucking some of the smartest kids in your fucking school are going to be the ones who are, you know, I mean, suspended or in detention on a regular fucking basis, because like they're going to be the best at being the worst. like that's what's going to end up fucking happening every goddamn time, because like, yo, the smart ones, all they're going to do is stand there and just try to be, you know, I mean, worse than the baddest.
In the movie Catch Me If You Can, Abagnale, what he did is he pretended to be a teacher for weeks.
Yep.
And he got in trouble, and I was like going, yep, that's one of them, you know? Like, what'd you get in trouble for? Oh, I pretended to be a French teacher for weeks.
Yeah, like I used to get suspended every day, right? Like fucking, like I'd go to school just to get suspended so I can get kicked back out of school, right? Because it was way easier to not be in school as a whole. You know what I mean? Like, fucking, it's so much easier just to be the fuck home and eat nachos and hang the fuck out and get high than it is to actually go to fucking school and fucking learn some shit. Like, cause like, yo, you're like, why the fuck would I give a fuck about graduating high school? I'm gonna be good. Like, no matter what happens, I already have a job. I already got money coming in. I'm selling fucking weed. Like, life is easier, literally, just fucking not dealing with the goddamn system as a fucking whole. Like, and this is the problem that you run into with smart kids is like, yo, the smart kids legit, like, and I'm not talking about, you know, like fucking like your goddamn nerds and shit of this nature. I'm talking like you're really fucking smart kids, like guys like Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and things of this nature. These motherfuckers never made it through college. Like, the vast majority of billionaires on this fucking planet didn't go to fucking college. They never graduated fucking college because they didn't fucking need to.
Millionaires don't even go to college, actually.
Yeah. And this is what I'm saying. Like, so why is it that you would think that the smartest of the smart people are going to go to fucking college? Like, yo, fucking schools are fucking dumb. Like, you know, and you're not going to stand here and pay Google to fucking, like, go work for them if you're that fucking intelligent. You'll just either build your own shit or fucking find a way to make money to get by.
I would, because it's be money, or like the money would actually be well spent in that case versus, like, for example, let's say I wanted to work for Google and I'm like, I need to, man, it costs $300,000 to get the degree I need from MIT to go work for Google. Hey, Google, if we just gave you $20,000, could you train me? Yeah. Like, real talk.
I mean, if you could do it for a discount, different deal, but I don't see.
I'm like going, why don't I just use you and cut out the middleman? And they're like, oh, yeah, that works, you know, or whatever it is. Or, you know,
right.
Like,
I mean, like, if you could do it for like 10 grand, I could see it. Right? I could see going into debt 10 or 20 grand, some shit like that.
Like I'm saying, you're handing all the money to them that you would have spent at a college, because that's
the vibe I was getting. Like, you're gonna give them like 200 grand. I'm like, how long is it gonna take for you to pay them that?
Well, honestly, and it's like, no, that would be you'd be an indentured servant at that point.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, with 20 grand, it's a different deal.
You're like, yeah. So you're like going, hey, can I just give you that money? And it's like, oh, well, it's different than you owing a school money. And my response is, how? I've always said that. Like, whenever they're like going, well, a student loan debt isn't the same as an actual debt. How? I don't know where this myth came from of student loans are not a debt. It is a debt.
Yeah, it's fucking debt.
What did you think it was? You owe them that money.
Well, there's only 2 debts on the planet that you can't get off you with bankruptcy. You know what I'm saying? That's student loans and motherfucking child support. When it comes down to it, you know what I mean? Like, it's a goddamn debt, and it's one of the worst debts you can have.
Obama still had his student loan debt,
and
he was a president.
Like, yo, this was pushing 50, still had fucking student loan debt, and was president of the United States. I feel like there's a problem with this system. It doesn't work. Legit, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's. I guess we rabbit trailed off big time.
Yeah, I feel you. Let's finish this fucking video up real quick, and then we'll fucking, we'll speak a little bit, and then we'll end this bitch, because it's getting to be like an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, you're gonna have to edit something.
The traditional 4-year university program is probably endangered. 2-year programs, technical skills, to getting a 6-week welding degree. That sort of educational system is likely to see an explosion in activity. But again, we were moving this direction anywhere. I'm sure you're familiar with things like Minerva or the Khan Academy. Those programs allow you to get a education that's like 20% as good as Harvard, but for free.
Right.
When that is the case, it's really hard for a traditional school to compete. Well, the technology was always going to force a change to the way we educate. That was inevitable. And with private education at the primary and secondary level being so extreme in terms of quality differences for public, we were always going to have a split in the post-secondary educational system as well. So we now have 3 things that have kind of come together all at once. The private educational boom has finally reached the tertiary level. The quality difference has finally reached the point of no return. And then the technological shift has finally forced universities to change the way that they operate. And then COVID is just kind of, again, accelerating everything all at once. So we're probably going to see an unraveling. A lot of the community colleges and a lot of the 4-year universities that just can't adapt very quickly to this. Those that can, they're going to be amazing, because everyone is going to be able to matriculate from one of these universities with real-life skills that can go to play immediately. And usually when a country is getting ready to open, it means that they've eliminated at least 95% of the cases. We haven't done that at all. We're maybe 20% off of our peak. And what that means is when we open up, we'll just have a secondary wave that is probably going to be at least a factor of 5, maybe a factor of 10, worse than the first one. That means that coronavirus is going to be endemic among the American population, and we will be exporting the virus to the wider world, much in the way that the Chinese did in February of this year. That means our system will need to evolve in order to meet the needs. That means we're going to have masks as part of popular culture, just like you would wear underwear. It's not something I'm thrilled with, but this is where our political leadership has taken us, or honestly failed to deliver, and we've ended up. And this is just going to be what it's going to be like to be in the United States now until we have a vaccine. There's so much about this virus we still don't know. So, for example, once you get it, are you then immune to getting it again? We don't know. If you do have immunity, does it last for your life? Does it last for a month? We don't know. Everybody who gets it, who actually suffers negative impacts, a big problem is they get all these micro clots, which can trigger strokes, but honestly are kind of like sandblasting your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Do those clots last after the virus is gone? We don't know. So all we know for sure is that the communicability of this means that it's going to be with us for a long time. And we've proven incapable of crunching it out of our system. So if you are in an industry that relies on close contact, for example, a restaurant, it's very difficult to see us getting back to any flavor of normal until we have a vaccine. That's not 42% of jobs, but that's a lot more than we are comfortable with. The airlines are absolutely a national security issue, and we definitely want them in the long run, so they will be bailed out. But their 2 biggest sources for travel are business travel, which is pretty much stopped because no one wants to do an in-face meeting, and tourism. And tourism is pretty much offline until people feel confident again. So I mean, that's easily 85% of seats. Well, let me start with the should, and then let's go into the will. One of the reasons that I have been so harsh on President Trump and President Obama and President W. Bush and President Clinton is they have not forced us as a country to have a conversation with ourselves about what we want out of the world. We've just kind of been on autopilot, going through the motions. And because of that, we have no national vision at present, and we haven't for 30 years. So we've had the world's largest economy, the largest consumer base, the most technology, and the largest military, and we've honestly not really done much with it. So whether or not the world should be the policeman is not the point. The point is, until you know what it is you want, you don't know what tools you should bring to bear. Policeman is a means to an end. It's not the end. Well, I'm a big fan of George Herbert Walker Bush because he actually tried to have this conversation with us, and we told him no. His proto goal, because it was never completed because he lost re-election, was to put human rights, to put capitalism, to put democracy at the heart of a new global system. And in that, we would have absolutely had buy-in from Japan, Taiwan, Korea, most of Southeast Asia, all of Europe, both pre- and post-Soviet, and probably could have gotten in even in the Russians at that point. And it was that sort of coalition backed by American military and economic power, the world would have been a much different and a much better place than it is today. Now, I don't like saying this, but the United States can back away, and it is backing away. We're energy self-sufficient. We've got a population that, with a little bit of immigration, is above replacement level, so we don't have a demographic crisis. Our consumption base is more than enough to keep our economy going. We're financially self-sufficient. We're ridiculously in surplus in terms of agriculture. So all of the things you need to run a secure and prosperous modern nation-state, the United States has in spades, and has enough extra to make sure that we can make our overall continent with Canada, Mexico, and Central America secure as well. It works. It could be better, and we could be inspirational, but we're choosing not to. I went to university in New Zealand, so I'm always a fan of the Kiwis in everything. But if you're looking for secondary powers that can actually look out for themselves and have a relatively robust future, the four that matter the most are France, Japan, Turkey, and Argentina. All of them have most of the tools that they need, and the tools that they might be a little weaker in, for example, demography in Japan, they've figured out some workarounds.
All right. So that's the end of the motherfucking video and shit. Yeah, so what do you think, Ben?
Well, one I thought that I never considered Argentina at the time, but he's right.
Yeah.
Like, as a potential, because I was like, yeah, I mean,
they got to get their political system right? But they have the tools, right? Like, they have the tools in the shed to get it done, right? As far as like being a power of where they are, like they have, like most of the countries that surround them all have to go through them if they want to use the waterways to be able to access the wider world. And they have a giant city built on where three rivers meet and then hit the ocean. And I mean, like, so they have the tool shed. They had the toolkit to make it happen. It's just their fucking communist nonsense needs to fucking stop.
Well, and the thing of it is I'd never actually considered them as a potential for that, despite all they have, probably because of their communist regime.
Yeah.
Like, they have been ignored for too long, if I'm being honest. What else is? So, China, it looks like, I'm surprised he didn't discuss this in more spades, but, China went through, I don't know if it's still going, but it went through a massive flood. And this massive flood has impacted their food supply. And in some cases, their military strength.
Well, they always go through floods, right?
It's the Yangtze season. It happens.
Well, the Yangtze River, right? They have a problem of where they don't dredge it, and they haven't dredged it the way they needed to, so like it constantly fucking overflows its banks. It's just a regular thing. They're always fucking dealing with that.
So, but the part that got me was the amount of rain and the flooding that happened was getting to the point where they were worried about the structural integrity of one of their dams.
Yeah.
And so now that isn't, that's not routine. That part isn't. What happened was, it seemed all at once, China had a bad day. Corona broke out. Hong Kong was in the middle of separating. They're about to use military force to get it back. They're saber waving at India and Taiwan. Then all of a sudden they get a massive flood, which cuts off food supply. They get into a trade war with the United States. Australia refuses to send them extra food. Russia starts saying, hey, you owe us some land. You've been taking it bit by bit. The saber waving at India has caused some retaliation at the border. It's like, in China and Japan, they went in and they said, we are willing to dump the equivalent of $1 billion for companies to move out of China and to come over here.
Yeah. Well, like fucking India, like they're actually having border skirmishes with India in the Himalayas and shit.
Oh, quite so. Oh, and India is nothing to sneeze at.
Oh no, they're not a fucking joke. Like, India's not a fucking joke. And here's the other half of this: India sits right at the mouth of the Persian Gulf.
There's a lot of and I do have to explain this because this is not everyone's going to be concerned with world politics or sizes of countries or things like that. Thing number one you need to know. I know everyone's thinking China is uber population. They have so many people. You can't imagine how many people. You are also thinking of India. India has a massive population as well.
India has 300 million more people than China does.
It's so massive, in fact, that they could get into a skirmish, a fight with China, and potentially win.
Let me put it like this, right? India and China are so fucking big, they could both lose the population of the United States on each side and still wouldn't eliminate a quarter of their population.
Their population is massive. So when they send them out, you're going, well, these two going at each other, what does this mean? India definitely is not going to back down now, especially with as many backers as it's going to get. China is in a bad spot. I'm not going to say everyone's going to invade China and kill them, but China is in a bad spot. It really is. It's, okay, so you've got a food shortage, not just because you guys have such a population you need to import your food, but you've also had a massive flood, which stopped a ton of farmland, which is why you started getting creepy rules in China, like, eat for 2 if there are 3. Or eat for 1 if there are 2. So as not to eliminate wastefulness. Now, there is a cultural thing about wastefulness in China. That's actually a thing. Like, they will, like, splurge and just trash a bunch of stuff. That's a thing too, to be fair. But why now? Why suddenly that rule then? He's actually concerned about people starving.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the short of it.
The last thing he wants is people to go on a long walk. Because last time that happened, that's how his party got installed. Like, you have to remember, like, China, they took all the females out of the, fucking agricultural parts of China, out of eastern China and shit. Western China. And like they brought them all out to the coast on the east side. So they're separated by an entire fucking province. And so it's all dudes. And if them dudes start starving, they're going to have a bad fucking day.
And I know, like, I don't need to say this if you're going to put this on YouTube, but, you know, you know what guys do when they start wandering into town and they're starving. But other than just, you know, they're going to raid it. It's kind of like there was a guy who was joking with me and he was saying, like, I'm just, you know, whenever the United States falls apart, I'm just going to sit in Canada and sip my drink. And I'm like, where are you at? And like, that was my next question, because I'm like, wait, where are you? He's right next to New York. And I'm like, explain to me how you're going to be safe.
Like, you ain't gonna make it the fuck out of that state.
Like, you think this is what's gonna happen? Oh, border. Well, we can't cross that. Oh no, I guess we better turn around. People starving because of or whatever happened in New York. No, there's gonna be trouble everywhere. That's how that works.
Yeah, your ass out in the fucking game. You know, like the U.S. gets in real bad shape on that level. Like the whole of Canada's fucked. Like we will raid the shit out of fucking Canada. Like, fucking Justin Trudeau said if Trump doesn't leave the office of the fucking president peacefully, he'll come down with the Canadian military and remove him forcibly. Right? And
I dare him to try.
Yo, everybody's like, yo, Trump, don't go nowhere. Just don't go nowhere. We want Canada to come down and learn this fucking lesson firsthand. Legit.
Well, you don't understand, like, and I know it should be widely known, but at the same time, it isn't. The United States military is baffling in terms of like its military power. It is. And you know a lot, and you'd think a world leader would go, "Hey, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm a fuck with them. That's what I'll do." Like,
I'm gonna fuck with a country that literally can use other countries as condoms to fuck you. That's the one I'm gonna go.
There were comedians who were making jokes and saying, like, before you go to a war with the United States, you have to like watch an instructional video on the United States. Hi, we're the United States. We build monster trucks for fun.
Like we have guys in garages fucking putting fucking monster truck wheels on goddamn Miatas, like just in building fucking massive guns. Like, the fuck are y'all doing?
Well, the other one I wanted to add is, he goes like, and if you blow up 2 of our buildings, we will blow up 2 of your countries.
7.
We've done it before, and we'll do it again.
We have a president who got a Nobel Peace Prize and fucking started 7 wars. Like, yo, the fuck out of here. Like, yo, they're fucking, man, listen, like, what is Canada thinking? Like, Trudeau's like, we're going to bring our military. What, nigga, are you retarded? Like, yo, we don't even have to get the U.S. military involved.
We could just, like, I'm dead serious. I don't think you could fight New York's forces alone.
You couldn't fight upstate New York. Yo.
I know that you guys have never been to war in a long time, but...
Like, I don't think you understand what's gonna happen. Like, niggas got 50 cows just hanging out at the crib. You ain't gonna make it down to anywhere. Like, yo, even if you travel down the highways, you are fucked. Legit. The fuck is wrong with you?
Looking at my closet, and I'm like, let's see, 4 months of food for 3 people, enough ammunition to start a small war. And that's just in my house.
Like, I feel you. Like I'm sitting, like, I can sit here and look at my bag full of fucking goodies, you know what I mean, and go like, yo, there's
you got a bug out bag, don't you?
Yes,
you got like a bag you can just grab and run out.
Yup. Like, yo, legit. You ever seen like fucking I'm trying to think. You ever seen like one of those movies where a nigga just like fucking packs a duffel bag full of hammers to go at like a fucking oil rig or whatever full of bad guys, right? Like I have that duffel bag. Like, yo, like the fuck out of here. I got fucking food, water, fucking diapers, wipes for the fucking kids, like fucking 2,000 rounds of ammunition and like fucking 6 guns packed in that bitch. What are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to it, what the fuck is this fucking Canadian military gonna do against a bunch of guys who can disappear into the woods and come out and just fucking blast you at fucking will like the Ghost and the fucking Patriot? The fuck is wrong with y'all?
And I'm pretty sure there's a sniper who, you know, like what was he called, the White Death?
Yeah,
like he would come back, like he would reincarnate himself.
Yo, we have guys on YouTube who just sit around and do nothing but sniping.
I don't like
it's entertaining for us.
The United States worships combat. And if you don't believe us, who buys all the Xboxes and who buys all the Calls of Duty? Who does it? Who keeps buying all these shooters? It's the damnedest thing. Like, what market keeps going, oh, I need more shooters. I need more shooters. Give me more shooters.
Every time there's bad news on the TV, fucking ammunition. Yo, 7 out of every 10 guns sold in the world goes to American private fucking owners.
I wonder if we should fuck with them.
I wonder if I should threaten a country that legitimately has more firearms than we have fucking squirrels in our country. Like, yo, for fuck's sake, what is wrong with this dude? Well, I wouldn't say people, but like they got like what, 10 million people in Canada? Something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. They wouldn't all back him for that, because if he's like going, I'm going to send in the military, I'm 90% sure his military would go, you can go fuck yourself. I'm not that retarded. I know this is insubordination, but I'm not going to die.
Like, boys, we're going to go and conquer the Americans. Like, no. What? Are you retarded? Like there's no plan that you have that you could be successful.
Look, they're removing the blockades. Haha, they're surrendering. That's what they're doing.
Wait. You mean the guards just left the motherfucking toll booths wide open at the border?
What's that? They put up a sign. Come on in. I dare you.
Why is it put on with fucking spray paint? What's going on here?
Smiley face. Like a winky face at the bottom.
There's these flags hung up all over the place. They got these windsocks everywhere. We don't understand what's going on. Like y'all niggas about to die. Like, the fuck is wrong with you? Could march the entire population of Canada into fucking America and you would never see any of them ever again. They would all disappear before they got to fucking Virginia.
Well, and you know what sucks is I was doing a joke one time because I was telling this. So there's back when I was playing World of Warcraft, there was a guy who was from Canada, and I acted like Canada was the most evil country on earth, or I'm like, I'm on to you, you Canadian bastards. Like, and it was a joke because Canada didn't ever do anything, ever. Like, they didn't do anything bad that I could name. And I'm like, I remember what you did to the Alamo, and he's like, huh? It would be like that, and I'm like, yeah, that's right, I failed history. It'd be like jokes like that. He was like, why don't you grab your ice skates and go feed your moose? And then but it was like that. And then I was talking about so guys, I have horrible news. Like one time there was a meeting, I said that Canada is planning to invade Texas. We have to defend ourselves. We have to attack first. There's only one. And then, but someone pointed out, they're like, oh, Texas couldn't beat Canada. And I was like, what?
Wait, what?
Oh, you actually think that?
Wait. Oh. What did that guy just say?
What did he say?
What did he just say? Does he not understand?
What?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, so I'm like going, look, Texas by itself, just all on its lonesome, I think is 30% of the U.S. military.
Yo, let me put this way, okay? I live in Pennsylvania. All right, there's about 12 million to 13 million people who live in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, per square acre, all right, per acre, there's 3 hunters, registered hunters in Pennsylvania.
Oh, we're going to play this number. Okay, go ahead.
Right. We passed a law recently that said you're allowed to hunt inside the city limits of Philadelphia. Our firearms ability in Pennsylvania, on average, 60 to 70% of our fucking state is armed. That by ourselves, we could clean up the entirety of Canada without a military. With no tanks, no MRAPs, no Humvees. We could clean them up with pickup trucks and rifles by ourselves. Fuck Texas. You don't need Texas, is what I'm saying. We don't even need Texas. Michigan clean up motherfucking Canada.
Yeah, it's but that's just something that it's not really widely understood, to be honest. So there is a worldwide assumption that Americans are stupid, and just to be perfectly clear, I don't really even consider that altogether wrong.
Yeah, so, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. I'll be honest with you.
I'm going to go, okay, fair enough. But but please call us stupid for the correct reasons, because calling us belligerent would be very accurate. You know, Americans are crazy. We always have been. Oh, and while we're on the subject of talking about Americans, for those of you who are across the sea, I'm going to take this moment to explain some things, because I get these questions a lot, and let's just get them out of the way. The reason we have different size cups when you go to get a fountain drink is not under the assumption that you will stay in the restaurant. It is that you will take the cup with you. And therefore, the bigger cup costs more, even though there are more free refills. Now that question is out of the way.
I want the world to understand something, all right? See, what y'all don't know is that the United States grows so much fucking food that legit, if we don't just stand here and like fucking use it unbelievably wastefully, it'll all just get thrown away any fucking way. Right? That's kind of the point.
Yeah, our restaurant is unbelievably wasteful. Even the most conservative of them are unbelievably wasteful. We supply 1/5 of your food.
Yeah.
The United States, just if you're outside the United States, where's 1/5 of your food come from? United States. It's the breadbasket. It's just that area that makes that much food. You know, I think it's in our national anthem, Forever Waves of Grain. Let me reenact something for you. It goes like this. God, there's so much grain. You keep driving and driving. Still more grain. There's just wheat. You keep driving and driving. There's still wheat. Then after a bit, you're losing your mind. You're going, I haven't seen anything but wheat.
Okay, let me explain something about Europe. All right, that y'all probably, like most Europeans have no fucking understanding of how big the United States is. Right? Like, you can start driving and not fucking stop for 2 days, probably almost 3, and still see nothing but fucking wheat and fucking cornfields. That's how big the fucking country is. And it's just all filled with fucking food. just growing out of the earth. And then we have river systems, which legit, our Mississippi River system has more navigable ways than the rest of the world combined. And that doesn't count the coastal motherfucking islands that are all around our fucking nation that create a river that surrounds the United States on all sides, that never gets hit with fucking hurricanes or real problems. Like, yo, our country is our geography is just so much better than y'all's, and no one lived here for a long time other than like the Native Americans who made no use of it. That, like, yo, we don't have the problems of where we cut down every fucking tree in the country and now there's no fucking animals left. Like, we're way better off than the rest of y'all are, and you're gonna starve and we're gonna laugh at you while we eat. You know what I'm saying?
Now, I'm not saying all this to antagonize. I'm just saying this to go, I need to get some of this out of the way. And one of the questions I get is, why do you have those cups? Next, I've got another thing I'm going to share with them. They might need to know this.
Okay.
Debit cards and credit cards actually cost different amounts to the vendor. So, when they ask cash, credit, or debit, that is because it is a different charge. It is not the same. The reason we have prices that are a set price that do not include tax is because that food stuff or whatever you're seeing on the shelves is in different states. And so the price that they're showing on that shelf is before tax, because there are also companies that are in multiple states.
Like
the tax cannot simply be included in the price because it's all fucking different depending on where you're located.
Yeah, like we have national food chains that actually like produce snacks all across the country, like potato chips and those are, I guess, what they all call crisps, right? Popcorn or pretzels or fucking candy bars like Hershey's, right? They don't just sell them in Pennsylvania where the state tax is 6% where they make them. You know what I mean? They sell them all across the nation where Delaware that doesn't have any state tax, or Florida doesn't have any state sales tax, or Indiana, which is 7%, or fucking Illinois, which is 9%, or California, which is 10%, right? Each place is different. So, but what they do is they make it the same price everywhere, right? So it's $1.99, but you have to pay, you know what I mean, the state tax different in each state. Right, that way, like, you know, like the vendor will get it for like $1.60 or $1.50, and they make 50 cents off of that fucking candy bar, no matter where they are. Right, that way it's all nice and even, and all the money comes back in from the vendors in the same fucking price.
There's a reason for it. That's all I'm getting at, because I've always got that laughter. They're like, why don't they just put to add the tax? And I was like, I thought about it. I'm like, why don't they do that? And I'm like, oh, they can't. That's the quick solution.
Yeah, and because like we don't all live in the same country here, right? Like each state has its own rules as to how it taxes to be able to fund its local government.
Each state runs their shit however they want to run it.
Yeah, like some states are super left, some states are super right, some states are really rural, some states are more fucking metropolitan. You know what I mean? Depends on what type of city, what type of people, how the fuck it runs, whether it was industrialized, whether it was non-industrialized, agricultural based, all of these type of things, right? These are all economic standpoints that motherfucking stand here and dictate on whether or not you're going to have an urbanized or rural population. You know, it's one of those things, right? And if that was way too highbrow for you to understand, it's probably because you're a European and you're fucking retarded. You know what I'm saying? And you're not actually educated. You just want to sound smart because you know a whole bunch of U.S. politics because you have to. And all of us fucking think that every last country in Europe is just called Europe, all right? We don't even fucking understand that you have different countries and different people and different languages because nobody fucking cares because we don't have to. And by the way, soccer's not a sport.
That being said, I'm telling you this because when people come from overseas, there's these questions and I feel like they don't get answered or that they just don't ask because there's a lot of them where they're like, hey, why don't they just do this or why don't they just do this? The quick assumption, like, if I were in your country and I saw you guys doing something weird, I wouldn't assume it was because you're retarded. I just wouldn't automatically assume.
Come on.
Well, I wouldn't often be wrong. If we made that assumption, you wouldn't often be wrong, because at the end of the day, most people are retarded. I get that, but truth be told, so when people come over here and they think, oh, well, that's how that works. Honestly, I find it completely adorable when a European comes over here and starts explaining what would fix the United States. I find it adorable.
Yeah, look. See, here's what a lot of Europeans don't understand about the States. Number one, we provide
their own country.
Yeah, we provide like the vast majority of shit that you have, right? Like, you know, all that, like that health stuff that you have, like the free healthcare and all that. The reason you have that's because we give it to you, right? Because the United States does all the heavy lifting for, you know what I'm saying, fucking all of the
reason you can trade at all is because, well, the United States is doing the heavy lifting, and that's where everyone makes fun of us for spending so much on the military. And I'm actually half tempted to say, pull back, quit spending so much.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's why we're pulling our troops out of. That's why we're pulling our troops out of those countries.
And they're going to be happy for however many weeks that'll be when we actually pull out for real.
Well, here's another thing. Like, we do all the heavy lifting when it comes to the R&D for the manufacturing of healthcare goods. Like,
yeah, we do all the research, in fact, and the development.
Yeah. We produce, like, we actually invented about 95% of all new drugs in the past 100 years. You know, because y'all are communist and you don't spend money on your medicine. So, like, you don't do any real research or anything of this nature. And on top of that, all the new techniques and fucking machinery and shit, yeah, we come up with it. Because, like, y'all are not really inventive people or productive, right? So when, you know, we stop giving you shit and stop providing for you and doing all these things, it's going to feel good when, you know, you come begging us for things and we go, eat a dick. You know what I'm saying? We're going to say, Vivictus, motherfucker.
Well, what's been going on is, and I'm not going to blame, let's say, because England's waking up a bit, but I'm not going to say that every European country feels the same way. But I have noticed something. A lot of them do legitimately hate America.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not a rational thing either. It's they actually do hate America, and you're going, the part that gets me is we're not like attacking or oppressing them or anything. In fact, it's the opposite most of the time. Like we're basically giving you stuff a lot of times.
Well, you know what it is. Do you know what it is, man?
I've noticed it was on their news. Is one thing in particular why they do that. I've noticed that, but I can't say for sure.
No, I'll tell you exactly what it is. Right, here's what it is. This is fucking kids being mad at their father, is what this is. Right. So, like, how do I put this? I watched the movie here recently where, I watched The Purge. You ever watch the fucking Purge?
I've never seen it actually, but, you know.
You should watch it. You should watch it. It's most definitely something that's worth a watch as far as understanding or, like, watching human psychology. So, like, there's this dude who fucking is screaming in the street for help, right? And there's a rich family headed by Ethan Hawke, you know what I'm saying, who's the actor. And fucking he has a daughter and a wife, right? You know, pretty wife, you know what I mean, fucking hot little daughter and shit. And fucking, you know what I mean, little punk ass son who likes to build like robots and shit. Well, the little punk ass son decides to open up the fucking house, which has like, you know, like steel fucking shit over top of the windows and the doors and all this stuff, and let this stranger in, right? Now, the stranger's not dangerous. He's a military vet, right? But, like, that's not really the point. he's being hunted by a bunch of fucking, you know what I mean, rich suburban fucking white college kids, and they go, you give us back our fucking little piggy, or we're going to kill, you know what I'm saying, we're going to come in and kill you and your family.
Yeah.
So fucking he ends up going and fucking capturing the motherfucking dude, right? You know what I'm saying? After, you know what I mean, like fucking much ado about nonsense, you know what I mean? He ends up going and grabbing the dude, tying him to a chair, and fucking, you know what I mean, fucking like stabbing the guy or whatever. Like he stabbed him, you know what I mean, to get him to stop moving or whatever, and then fucking like he fucking sits here and ties him to a chair, and he's gonna hand him over to these people to keep his family safe. Because they say, like, hey, look, we're not interested in you, we just want our fucking guy back. And so he goes to fucking like tie this guy up, and the mom and the daughter and the son fucking turn their back on the dad and call him a piece of shit for trying to save them. Right?
Seems right.
And so that's kind of where Europe is right now with the United States. So the U.S. provides all of its hard work for, say, like, you know, all our Middle East wars, you know what I mean, is because, like, we're providing them with fuel to stand here and be able to, how do I put this, fucking like have, like, you know, like all their fucking oil and, you know what I mean, all their coal and shit of this nature, you know what I'm saying? And we do all the fucking like military action to be able to bring these pipelines into Europe. And when we go, hey, look, you shitheads, you know what I'm saying, basically live off our dime. Like when Angela Merkel came here to meet with Donald Trump, he fucking left. When she left, he handed her a bill for services rendered for the past 100 years. Right? And they're highly pissed off about this because they feel as though we should just continue to provide their fucking security and we should do all the stuff, and they should not be forced to take care of themselves. They're like a kid whose parents are like, you need to go get a job and get your own fucking place. Yeah. And they're upset.
Kids, yeah.
That's all this is.
So there's times where, and I notice it's not just them though, and it's not just Europe in particular, but there's weird stuff. I noticed something like India doesn't particularly hate the U.S.
No.
Like, from what I've seen.
No.
They're like, hey, they're pretty cool. And I was like, well, okay, cool. Japan, it's kind of hit or miss. Like, Japan is pretty xenophobic and all.
Yeah. Yeah. All of Asia is. I don't know if you've ever met Koreans.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Same shit.
One of my friends was named John Taylor. We called him JT. He was Korean.
Yeah.
But anyway, and as it turns out, we would go to Korean places and they would give him and his sister a discount and not us.
Yeah.
It was a culture thing.
Well, like I've fucking worked with Koreans, like believe it or not, I was head of quality control for Samsung North America, right, for their appliances division and shit for the Northeast US. And like fucking like I had to deal with Koreans constantly. And some of the most racist, fucking horrible human beings you'll ever experience. Like they wanted me to be a permanent temporary agent, right? And like work as a temp the rest of my life and never work for their company because I was American and I wasn't Korean.
Sounds right.
Yeah. And I mean, I had an executive bathroom, executive parking spot, assistant, my own office, whole nine. But like I could never work for the company itself.
So what would happen is there was a situation in Japan where at one of our military bases, there was supposedly the rape of a woman, which, to me, I was like, so Japan being Japan then was my response, which I guess is horrible, but, and I was like, no, it's Japan, so they're going, well, and they're like going, yeah, well, but this time an American did it. I didn't have all the data on that, so I went, okay, well, what do they want to do? They want one of the military bases to go away, and I'm like, don't we provide the economy of that location? Like, there was an island, and I was like, wait, we're the main income. Like, I'm not kidding, we are, you know? And so what happened was they were like, well, and they want us to leave, and so we're like, fine, you know, and apparently we're talking about, yeah, let's leave, let's go, because they don't want us here. And they actually have a right to say it, because they might actually be able to shoot a ship before anybody invades them.
Yep.
So to some extent, they have a right to say it. But on the other side, I'm kind of wondering, like, if China ever showed up, they're like, wait, come back. You know, like, that's almost. I'm certain that's what would happen. I'm like, wait, but
well, China would fuck up Japan in a fight, or Japan would fuck up China in a fight.
Well, yeah, it's a question of, so if you were saying like neither one could actually attack the other.
No, Japan can attack China.
It can attack China.
Yeah.
How would it do that?
Well, Japan, okay, so Japan actually has a real navy, right? Like an actual navy. Not like, you know, I mean, like a bullshit one. Like they have like probably next to the United States, they have the second best fucking navy in the world. And they're able to go anywhere on the planet that they want to go to. So, like, they can literally sit there off of the coast of Taiwan on the opposite side of the island and just bomb the fuck out of goddamn China, and China couldn't do a fucking thing about it.
And they're like, we have more land than they have bombs. The fools. Like, you know,
yeah, because China can't go nowhere. Right.
Well, and I know that China can't very easily attack Japan because Japan would shoot them before they got any reasonable distance close.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with Taiwan. Right? Like fucking Taiwan, literally, if Japan or China ever tried to attack fucking Taiwan, they would stand there and just fucking shoot missiles at them until they like fucking surrendered.
Tee-hee.
Like, yo, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like China's fucked. Like, no matter what happens, China's fucked. They can't go after Taiwan. They can't go after Japan. They can't go after Vietnam. They can't go after Korea.
And they're like, and then of course, meanwhile, the Japanese Navy goes, "We're pretty strong. I bet not even the Americans could destroy us."
Oh no, they
and
fucking.
Then a little red light appears on their boat. Like, you're like, hey, what? Does someone have like a laser pen? This is like really, really weird. And then a satellite blows them.
Like, yeah, like they don't like. Okay, so like, all right, there's a difference between like a jump carrier and a super carrier, right? Like fucking in the whole world, there's like fucking 20 goddamn fucking jump carriers, right? And 10 of them are American. And in the whole world, there's like 15 super carriers, and all of them are American. For an average jump carrier to be able to compete with a fucking super carrier, you'd need 7 jump carriers. There's not enough. The math doesn't add up.
Well, it's one of those things where it's the United States military is like hilarious. It's hilariously outgunning whatever else they're going at. You know,
at current military buildouts right now, and China's on a building spree. The rest of the world will catch up to the United States in the year 2145.
Okay.
Like, yo,
but yeah, it's so the big argument that the rest of the world is, no, if we turned off all of our military budget, we would not be able to afford a lot of the things that you were doing because our population would not sustain it, and we have other bills that we need to pay that have nothing to do with that new program. In short, no, we can't have free healthcare like you.
Yeah.
We can't actually do that. We could begin steps to work towards that. That we could do, but it's not just a simple overnight something you can fix.
Well, again, like here's what we could do. Here's our best bet. Do you want to know like our best bet in order to fucking get our healthcare under control?
Regulate costs, step 1.
No. Not at all.
I mean, yeah, it is. You have to renegotiate the price.
It's not that. Here's what you do. It's really simple. What you do is you use the U.S. military to enforce small fucking copyright and fucking prescription prices.
Oh shit! Oh fuck!
Right. So like when the company, they make these prescriptions and they go to the rest of the world, right? And they go like, all right, you know, we had this new drug that cures this cancer or whatever the fuck it is, right? And they go, okay, well, we'll give you $4 a pill. And the fucking company goes, well, we need 120. And they go, I'll tell you what, we'll give you $4.25, right? And like fucking the company just begrudgingly accepts it, because if they don't, then like what they'll do is they'll just steal it and make it themselves. What we need to do is we need to take our U.S. military and go, you're going to pay $160 a pill now. That's what the fuck it's going to be. And if I ever hear about you trying to make a fucking pill off of what we do, we will bomb you back to the fucking Stone Age. Do you understand me, you kraut fuck? Right? Like, yo.
Well, what would be funny is I want to enforce it for like just a few months, and then I'm like going, oh, you don't like it? Oh, that's interesting. Like, but personally, if I were you, I would have thought I was a cocksucker too. Like, and at the end of the day, they're just like, I don't
like, yeah. I'm like, I understand. You know what I'm saying? That's y'all feel some sort of, and here's the thing, like immediately our prices would go down, right? Because like, you know, all of a sudden now
they're paying for it now.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We should just take it out of the rest of the world.
Well, and honestly, one of the parts I feel like is we should give what they want and just pull back and leave them alone.
No.
Okay.
It's way easier to literally extort them with our military. Like, we have the ability to do so, right? And they'll go, oh, the United States isn't going to do anything. And then all of a sudden they hear this, right, and like the whole place explodes, and they're like, oh, apparently they weren't joking, right? And they're like, the humanity, right? And they're gonna be like, well, we're gonna declare war. And I'm like, but what army? We're gonna get NATO. That's our army, you dumb fucks, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then we do this, that number. They're like, we're going to declare war. We already defeated your military. What? And then they go, we're going to call NATO. And he goes, go ahead, call him. And then the guy's phone rings and he picks it up. NATO's speaking, and he's the guy in the room.
What can I do for you? NATO here.
Goes, they did what? No way. He's like, he goes, oh, I assure you, we will get right on this. Goes to commence the operation.
Like, yo, they called NATO and Trump picks up. What can I do for you?
Oh yeah, we're building a big new NATO. It's gonna be huge.
Right, legit, that's what we should do. Like, yo, if we did this, like, all of a sudden Americans' healthcare would go down by like fucking 3/4 overnight. You know what I'm saying? And like, yo, we could all get behind using our military to get our fucking healthcare under control.
Well, so basically your plan is, so if we're going to extort anybody, can we just extort China? Let's start with that.
We could do whatever country you want to do. I think we should do it with everybody. We should start with Europe and Australia first, right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm going to be real with you. I feel a sense of kinship with the Aussies.
I'll be honest with you. Like, the Australians are the people who are furthest, like, I don't think they should exist, right? I don't think that should be a country.
So, to be fair, they're basically the people that got rejected from England, same as us. They're the criminals. We were the people they didn't want as well.
I understand this.
Kinship, yes. Brotherhood, even. And in fact, I feel like their very island is trying to kill them.
That's what I'm saying, all right? When you live on an island full of devil bats, drop bears, and fucking trapdoor spiders, you should move, all right? They're people don't even have Yeezys, for fuck's sake, right? Like, yo, why do they exist? Like, they have no spinner hubcaps, you know what I mean? Like, yo, they're fucking surrounded by goddamn box jellyfish on one side, trapdoor spiders and motherfucking pythons on the other.
I think their military got into a fight with emus and lost.
Yes, one time. They lost a war to birds. Like, we should just go conquer that nation. Like, why do we not own Australia?
No. We should not go conquer Australia. Dude, I don't want to fight those emus.
Here's where I'm at. I promise you there's a couple of guys down south that would turn them into the world's best chicken wings. Like, real shit.
Maybe, but I'm telling you, I'm thinking we should just leave the Aussies alone. Because they've got their own shit they gotta deal with. And honestly, I just...
They can't even build buildings anymore. They're barely white people at this point, when it comes down to it. Barely. Like, you do realize, like, they can't even build a fucking apartment building. Why?
Okay,
why are they a country?
Like, can we just start with, like, the most obnoxious countries first?
France, Germany,
France. You know what? Fuck it. France and Germany. Let's get a hit list going right now. Like, just
okay,
we'll have a little dartboard ready, and we'll throw a dart, and whatever name it hits, that's the country.
No. All right, we got bones to pick with some of these countries. All right, I'm tired of France. All right, I've had it. France. I've had it up to my ears with France. All right, I'm fucking tired of France. I think we should load the statue up, load this fucking Statue of Liberty up with fucking high explosives and throw it at the Eiffel Tower. Like, that should be the fucking number one thing we should be working on our international policy, right, when it comes down to it.
So, straight up, I think we would be doing France a favor, like legitimately an upgrade, if we came in and we just bang, bang, bang and took over. And the reason that is they're like, oh, thank God. The moment that happens, that's not the response I was expecting. You know, when we get there and they're like, oh, good, the American, they are here to save us. And I'm like,
no, what we should
do is... We were going to rob you.
There's nothing to rob. The country is broke.
Oh, but monsieur, there is nothing to rob. You take what you want. We are glad that you're here. We can use tourists.
No, what you do
is...
is...
look at each other and we're like,
we have to carpet bomb the entire country. All right? The whole thing.
Straight up,
like, you have any idea...
What were you expecting us to do? Can you kill the Muslims?
No.
Oh, that again.
I would prefer to deal with the Muslims over the communists.
I'm going... Okay. So, hang on. We talked it over. And he's like, do not worry. We will call NATO. And they, like, pull out a phone and they call it. And once again, Trump picks up the phone and he's like going, NATO here. No way. That happens every time. And he goes, honestly, you know what? We're going to take care of that right now.
And he pushes a button.
Then he's like looking at his desk. He like flips up his little laptop. He types. He checks his email first. He goes, oh, right. I almost forgot. Flips up a little red switch on his desk. And there's a red button with a country's name on his desk. And he's like going, let's see, F? France, there it is. Presses the little red button and then carpet bombing commences. Like, pre-install the bombs, go off.
Like, legit, like yo, we need to exterminate the communists out of France, right? And I feel like that's going to be about 97% of the fucking population, somewhere around there, right? And then, what up?
I'm just going to say, it's not very profitable what we're suggesting.
I feel like it's going to be profitable because once we're done, we will have a whole bunch of area for us to go and like take vacations. We could sell timeshares.
you know what? We'll finally have people we'll finally have a place we could put some people.
That's what I'm saying.
Like honestly, we can just go. We'll send you to France.
Well, how about this?
Make it sound like it's a vacation or something.
Well, how about this? How about this? We could take New York and deliver it in France, right? And like San Francisco, New York, San Francisco, L.A., Chicago, Washington D.C.
I don't think I can
Boston.
say this on YouTube, but have you heard my solution called the Big Gay Island, where we make an island and we just send all gay people there, and it's fucking awesome. And they're the leaders in AIDS research.
I had the same idea for AIDS, right? I was gonna make an AIDS island, right? And we'll put like roller coasters and shit, you know what I mean? And fucking like,
it's just, you have a blast because I mean you got AIDS. I mean you might as well, you know.
Yeah,
but,
everybody has AIDS, so like y'all can fuck as much as you want and enjoy yourselves. And in like no medicine, in like 5-10 years, you'll just have an empty island. You'll be fucking good to go.
Well, it's just, I like the idea of the joke, the Big Gay Island, and then you just keep sending people there, and it's like, and it's actually a pretty nice island or something like that, but you know, everyone knows what you're actually doing. You're like, wait, are you calling the population? What? No, of course not. Why would I do that? Like, you know, and then we're gonna call NATO. Trump's phone rings again. He goes, I'm just gonna let it ring. He says after a bit.
I don't get time to answer that right
Germany.
now.
Germany. Germany, do we have any bones to pick with Germany?
I mean, like, you know, they're gonna be left to their own vices.
I've forgiven them for World War II.
I don't like, see, I'm not mad at them about Nazi shit, right? I'm not mad at them about that. I'm more upset at Germany for like just being
I'm mad
German.
about the more modern shit, like them wasting money. That's all there is to it.
I don't like Deutsche Bank.
They handed their country over. They did. They went, hey, we're gonna let other cultures in as much as possible, and we're just gonna,
again,
you know,
like,
not force
what we do.
law.
Here's what we do. All right, you know, look, we just carpet bomb Western Europe, all of it, right, top to bottom, and then we repopulate it with Americans from that neck of the woods, right, as much as we can. You know, you get like some Frenchies and some Italians and some Irish, and you know, you just rework out the entire place. You know, fucking like as much as you really can. And then, you know, you restart fucking Europe with, you know what I mean, like white people that know some shit that aren't communists.
Well,
and you give them their guns back and you like let them enjoy themselves.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Let's get that on the way. Guys, I don't know why you gave up your guns. I don't know how you fell for that.
Like, I feel like
I have no idea how you fell for that shit. Because let me give you a play-by-play. Here's what Hitler did. Like, play-by-play. He's like going, alright, I want absolute power, but how do I get it? Guys, Hitler said, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. This is not your fault. Everything that's happening, not your fault. It is this race's fault. This race of people right here. They did it. Alright. Now, I'm going to need to censor everyone that disagrees with me. I need control of radio, magazines, newspaper, and if possible, schools. Oh, I got all those. Perfect. Awesome. If I have them when they're 5, I have them forever. All right. What else should I do real quick? I'm going to get the people off of drugs. He actually did Hitler actually did do some good things, and I'm not saying he did a lot of good things. Get nothing misunderstood. But I'm not going to go into that. But I'm pretty sure anybody who's listening would go, oh yeah, he did some good stuff. You know, that's just what he did. But getting people off of drugs was noteworthy in of itself. But
ending the brothels in fucking Berlin.
Then he went, I want
the
this
Volkswagen,
race of people
BMW
not to get priority. I want this race of people not to get priority on getting jobs. Oh, okay. Which, by the way, if this sounds a little bit like leftist America, you would be right. So the only difference is he said Jews, they say white people. So
It's weird. It's weird how like the Jews today are screaming about the white people. That fucking always kind of bothered me.
I always thought that was a little weird. Yeah. Yes, and then they but we'll get back to that later. So then he went, "Give me your guns." And this is before shit actually hit the fan. This is before things got out of hand. He said, "Give me your guns." And honestly, I don't know why anyone gave them up. Like, I straight up go, "Did you guys give up your guns?" "Yeah." "Okay, well, what if your government installs a fascist puppet and now they control everything? What do you do?" And they just sit there quiet, like they never considered that. I'm like, okay, well, what if your government's gotta go? What do you do? "Well, that's why you have a gun." And you're like going, "Yeah, but you can't compete with the army." And I'm like, I mean, you can if you have an armed populace. Yeah, that tends to happen, as it turns out, you know. And also, it changes the dynamic. They have to kill you to take your country.
There's this Scottish fucking economist, right? He's from Brown University, right? Yo, is my mic crackling real bad?
Drinking my water. No.
Okay, cool. All right, good. Right, so, all right. There's a Scottish economist. He goes to Brown University, right? He's one of my favorite guys as far as like just listening to him. He does a lot of economic history and shit. But he has a saying. He says, what did he say? He said, shit. Where's that place where all the fucking rich people live, like up in fucking New York and shit?
Manhattan.
The Hamptons. He said, the Hamptons are not a defensible position. The people will come for you.
Oh, yeah.
He said, the people will come for you. Like, yo. And that is beautiful because, like, that's an understanding that very few individuals understand. And that's the most important reason why you have guns. Because once your aristocracy continues to fucking, like, fuck with you and push the buttons and get to that level, like, there's not a, like, you know, you have to fucking eventually stand up for yourself and go, like, yeah, that's enough's enough. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's like, oh, well, guess what? You have to put down your yogurt, and you're like, I guess they have to die, you know? And you put it down, and you're like, and that's our own government. Like, there's a point where, yeah, if they just became full tyrant.
Well, they're getting there. They're getting there little by little. They're fucking most definitely getting there.
Some would argue they're there already, but I'm like, no, because most people are still comfortable, and as long as people are comfortable, they're not going to do anything. And by the way, tyrannical governments tend to make you uncomfortable. Like, that's what tends to happen. We're not there yet because people are still comfortable. And they're like going, but they've been doing this. I'm like, hey, listen, people are still comfortable. As long as they're happy, they're not going to do anything. They don't even care their rights are being infringed as long as they're comfortable. It's the moment you make them uncomfortable that fighting starts.
As long as the TV's on, motherfuckers aren't going to fight. Like, that's just the reality.
No. This is what they're like. We might be there here in a bit. The moment they're like, hey, you guys need to lock down some more.
It's when all right. It's when the pain of inaction becomes greater than the pain of action.
Pretty basic.
You know what I mean? Like, that's really where it's at. You know what I mean? When motherfuckers
think of oppression as hunger.
Yeah.
Like, when you're hungry enough. Has to be great enough for you to actually get up and stop playing your game to go eat. Or whatever it is you're doing, you know? If you're, like, kind of hungry, you're like, it's whatever, you know, I'll eat a little later. It's like, whatever. But if you get hungry enough, you're going to go eat. It's just an example. It's a for instance.
Yeah. When it becomes to the level of where, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have no other fucking choice but to fight. You're gonna fight. Like, that's what it is. When you get to that fucking level, because, like, you know, this is why I always have a problem with places like France, right? Like, France legitimately, how do I put this? Like, yo, they protest over nothing, right? Which makes them fucking dumb. But in the United States, they're not going to protest until they get to the fucking level of where they're fucking hungry and their future looks bad enough and bleak enough that they're going to fucking stand up and fight.
Yeah, but a U.S. protest doesn't look the same. Because when people are... Well, actually, let me reword this. A U.S. riot doesn't look the same. Because whenever other places riot, you don't typically hear gunfire. In fact, when I was in San Antonio, and, you know, there was an attack on the Alamo, there wasn't any gunfire. It was actually very tame. There were 2 windows broken.
Yeah,
for 2 stores. It wasn't a big like. It
but
really
like here, when they protested in the Berg, they flipped over cop cars and started lighting shit on fire.
Yep, and I'm gonna let you know, those are just lefties.
Yeah, those are just young kids. Those are just young kids.
When right-wingers protest, it's not pretty because they are armed to a small war. Like, they are prepped to God knows.
Oh no, they're armed to a large war. Get nothing misunderstood. Like, there's a reason why, like, Japan in World War II, like, they had, like, some brash young general. He was like, we should invade the American mainland. And, like, the old dude stood up and he said, if you invade the American mainland, there will be a gun behind every grass. There's not a chance.
A good way to put it. Like, Texas, like, if, let's say, someone invaded California, we would send in the Yeehaw Brigade, which is a bunch of pick-em-up trucks filled with, like, mounted guns, and, like, and you hear the yeehaws coming, and then everyone's frightened. They're like, oh no, like, we have to run. The Yeehaw Brigade is here.
Yeah, like, it's a whole different animal when Americans come out with those rifles and shotguns and shit and start really getting shit done. Like, they don't, like, Americans aren't gonna play games. When it gets to that fucking level where motherfuckers are really pissed off, there's going to be a lot of bodies in the street. It's not going to be like anywhere else.
And people are going to be like, oh, well, it's going to be like, you know, there's someone reporting it. I'm like, I don't even know if CNN and MSN are going to be open the next day. Like,
I'll be honest with you. I am fucking waiting for somebody to break into that bitch and just take it over. And legit just sit down and have a conversation about fucking the world as a whole.
I'm waiting for V from V for Vendetta to legit go in there. And then here's the funny part. The cops don't even show up. They're like, nah, it's fine. Like,
like, at what point do they have this talk? At what point does that happen? Like, when? When does this fucking happen? It needs to happen. Somebody needs to get on the news and tell the fucking truth. Like, why the fuck has this not happened yet?
Well, and just me being honest, I'm like, I hold them wholly to blame for the division in this country. For the division, they are responsible for this. There are 2 people responsible. The media and academia. Those 2.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, if shit hits the fan, they're going to be targeted. If things happen, like, get really bad, there's no way they're getting out of this okay.
Everybody know who's to blame. Everyone knows this. They know it's leftist, communist, academic professors, and they know it's the leftist media. No one's under any disillusions about this.
Well, and I'm hearing stuff like, the president has won, Joe Biden has won. I'm like, he didn't get any of the certificates. I can confirm that he's not president yet. And they're still going, he won. I'm going, what? He hasn't, though. He might actually win, that's true, but I'm just saying, why are you jumping the gun?
Oh, I don't know, man. Like, on one hand, I'm sick of this fucking nonsense. Just let Joe Biden in and, you know, he'll ride out 4 years and then we'll pick another strong man, you know what I mean, in fucking 2024, right? But, like, on the same point...
How would we vote him in if the fraud was that bad, though?
Because they can't do it twice.
They can.
They can't.
Until someone shoots them.
No, they can't do it twice.
You wouldn't think so, but, I mean, they did it to our face already. And they did it to Bernie Sanders last year, and Hillary cheated last time.
Yeah, they can't do it twice, right? It's like fucking the next one is going to be, it may be the last one as far as shit's really concerned. And let me be real here. Here's the other half of this. Legitimately, like, people are going like left. I've been on left wing fucking whatchamacallit, like live streams with, you know what I mean, like fucking, you know, 30,000 people, 40,000 people watching, and the entire chat is filled with nothing but people who are bitching about Biden and fucking screaming, "Hey, do you miss Trump yet?" And these aren't right-wing people. These are lefties.
Yep. And by the way, I did a little, this isn't going to take much math. You already know this.
Yeah.
Democrats had to vote for Trump.
Oh,
for him to win at all, and to reach those numbers they're talking about, Democrats voted for Trump.
Oh yeah.
There are a lot more Democrats than there are Republicans. And the difference gets bigger each year because we're like every 4 years, a lot of the older demographic that would typically vote right wing is getting, dying or dead.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong about that. Right.
The Zoomers, the new generation.
You're wrong. You're wrong about that, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because conservatives outbreed liberals.
Okay, but for now, those kids aren't voting.
No, they've been voting.
Well, then guess what? We're losing, in terms of elders, we're losing them faster than, at least down here in San Antonio, we're losing them faster than they're being replenished.
Well, what you're having a problem with is Californians moving into your state.
Well, yeah, that's another problem.
Right, you have a mass amount of fucking people coming in from out of state.
And then there's neighbors. They're like waving. They're like, "Howdy, neighbor. We're just stocking up in case there's some trouble. You know what I mean?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And I'm like, "They're grocery shopping for me."
What did Bill Burr say? He said, like, fucking, he said, if I stand here and I fucking learn how to grow fucking vegetables and do all this shit, all I'm doing is really stocking up for the fucking biggest, baddest motherfucker on the block. Right? He said you need to have a fucking gun to defend it.
Yeah, that's right. It's like you're just gonna go, "I know who has the most weapons on this block, and it ain't you."
Yo, there's a video. There's a video I made.
My dad has had sniper training, and I'm thinking about going to his house.
I have a video on my channel that I mirrored off another channel. It's called SHTF 1 Year in Hell. Right, fucking, like, and it's about the Serbian war, where like they were fucking completely surrounded inside of Kosovo or whatever it was. And like the guy said, he said if somebody wanted to come in, it was just about guns in hands. It's that simple. Like, if you don't have enough people, you know what I'm saying, with you in your fucking house, and you have a fucking group of 10 people trying to come in, there ain't one motherfucker who's gonna defend that. You know what I mean? Like, yo, if they're all armed and you're armed by yourself, you are fucked. You are not making it as a rugged individual.
Yeah.
No, it is what it is.
You do need numbers. That's all there is to it.
Yep. But anyway, yo, look, man, it's been 2.5 hours, so I'm gonna end this bitch and motherfucking upload this motherfucker to YouTube. I'll send you the link then. Yo, Raiden, thank you very much, man. It's been a great fucking live stream. We need to do it's been a great fucking video. We need to do this more often. Like, yo, you're a fucking awesome guest.
Well, probably. That was actually funny. It got better when we weren't talking about the video. We're like talking about like,
yo, dude, like, do you have time? Do you have time to like do live streams and shit? Because like, we could do this more often on like a regular basis, and like I usually draw a crowd of 60, 70 people watching at a time.
Well, it would be funny if we're like, when first we'll attack this person, like if we just go off on that, it's like when I'll call NATO. Like every time I like that.
Let me call NATO. All right, man. Let me end this bitch, man. All right, I'll fucking holler at you here in a little bit.